are stealing, people are robbing, there's needles on the floor, there's drug dealers, cops is raiding people's houses, gunshots every night. You see your friends die. You see, like it's a life of like trauma.
Getting in with the wrong crowd, or what was it that led you to where you were in that time?
Yeah, and that, in that time, I'm a 80s baby. So, in that time, this is right around the time where like crack was just introduced to a lot of the communities where I come from. And our parents were affected by it. Some of them was drug dealers and some of them was drug users. For my parents, they both were users. My mom and my dad. I had two older brothers. They both were drug dealers. And then it was me and my younger brother. So and then from that it was our neighbors, our friends. We were surrounded by it. It's kind of like that was the box that we was living in. That was like our reality at that time. And that's all we seen. So by the time I was 11, 12 years old, I was selling nicks of weed, and I immediately entered into that life of whether it was selling drugs and violence and just getting into a lot of trouble. At the age of 11, it landed me in prison, and that's what I say. A lot of people talk about being a product of your environment, but that's like a real true statement, because if you take two groups of people and it's probably not 100%, but it's 90%. You step out of your doorstep and your friend's friend mom is on drugs. Your cousin's dad is locked up. There's no food in his refrigerator. There's no food in your refrigerator. They're selling drugs to see where their next meal is going to come from. You're trying to do this. People are stealing. People are robbing. There's needles on the floor. There's drug dealers. Cops is raiding people's houses. Gunshots every night. You see your friends die. You see, it's a life of like trauma, and that affects a young kid. 11 years old, 12 years old, 13 years old, seeing that, that does something to your heart and something to your mind. So by the time you get older, you're just repeating that cycle, not knowing better by default. You're not knowing better, until you're introduced to another world. And when I got sent to juvenile detention, I was 11 years old and I was away for 6 months. And not only was it a place where I was separated from my mom, but it actually opened my eyes up for two things. One, getting sent to juvenile detention was the first time that I ever was on the highway inside of a vehicle. My mom didn't have a car. My dad didn't have a car. So running around in the projects, from a young kid all the way to the age of 11, I never had no reason to get on the highway. You know what I'm saying? Like no one has transportation. So being on the highway, going to another town over to get sent to a juvenile detention, it was opening my eyes. I'm looking out the window with handcuffs on at the age of 11. Like, where am I going? Like, I see cars, I see signs, I see highways, so that kind of right there was another stage in my life too. Like, yo, there is more out there, but I still was a young, confused kid, a young, confused little boy. And then once being separated from my mom for 6 months, it didn't really make me better. It just made things worse. I really turned into a product of my environment, fighting in the prison system, getting tickets, getting restrained. And from there, it was just a never-ending cycle, and it was a journey until 15 years old. I got sent to juvenile, an older facility. At 17 years old, I was in MYI. At 18 years old, I was in a residential home. And next thing you know, I was in Northern CI. And this cycle just kept going until the age 20, 22, 21, I believe, around that, where I finally cut that cycle. And I was like this right here had to grow. And that's when I started seeing the world and things from a different point of view. And I kind of stepped out of myself and took a breather. And when my friends wasn't messing with me, like, nah, man, nah, I was more like, listen, I love y'all, but I have to focus on me. I have to see what's going on. And that's where I was able to stand still at this point in my life. And once I stood still at this point in my life, I was able to focus on life. Like, what is life? What's the purpose of life? Why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? And that's when things and opportunities started coming my way, right in my early 20s.
Catch full episodes of Into the Muse on Spotify, Anchor FM, and Apple Podcasts. Into the Muse on Spotify, Anchor FM.